Ukrainian President Zelenskyy just took the dagger and put it right into the heart of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin's plan to try to set a trap in Geneva. Zelenskyy, joined by the UK and France, smoked out what Donald Trump and Putin were trying to do. You see, yesterday and today, there are trilateral negotiations that are taking place in Geneva between Russia, the United States, and Ukraine. Donald Trump and Putin wanted to use this to pressure Zelenskyy to give up all of Donbass and most of eastern Ukraine. They were preparing to gang up on Zelenskyy, corner him, corner his negotiators, and say, give up eastern Ukraine right now or else, and then list numerous threats. Zelenskyy saw what was happening. He called up his friends in Europe, he called up the UK, he called up France, and their delegation showed up, and they were not originally invited to even be there. And UK representatives, French representatives, some European Union representatives showed up and said, what? You're not going to let us in here? If you don't let us in here, then there's no valid negotiation taking place. Ukraine is Europe, Europe is Ukraine, and there can be no deal unless Europe is here. And then we saw what the plan was. Russia had a new negotiator who was at the table, who brought all of his fake history books to say, you see, all of eastern Ukraine and Ukraine in general belongs to Russia. There should be no peace deal at all because the only peace that exists is Ukraine fully submitting. Not to mention that before this meeting took place in Geneva, before these negotiations took place, Russia struck Ukraine with some of the worst ballistic missiles and Shahed drone strikes that we've seen since the war began. They hit 12 regions, 400 drones, almost 30 missiles, at least 3 people were killed. That was right before the Geneva negotiations. The trilateral was set to take place. Then right after the trilateral took place, Russia began the day with 29 missiles of various types, trying to strike Ukraine. Again, unfortunately, 25 were shot down. It was a barrage of Russian missiles, Russian Shahed drones. This is how it's described by Dennis Schleiderman. The delegations from the UK and France joined the talks between Russia, the US, and Ukraine in Geneva without being invited. I think this really messed up the plans to quickly sort everything out behind Europe's back and push for the annexation of Donbass, which is obviously what the US and Russian delegates were planning to do. London and Paris made it clear, no agreements about Europe without Europe. It's an extremely important show of support and a demonstration of their position. Zelenskyy also posted the following message himself. In the massive strike with which Russians began the day, he talks about how Ukraine was successful in knocking down a lot of these missiles. It's an important result for our air defense, and once again, we emphasize that air defense is a daily necessity. I thank all of our partners who understand this. By the way, that's referring to the fact that the U.S. doesn't understand this. Russia greets with a strike even the very day new formats begin in Geneva, trilateral and bilateral with the United States. This very clearly shows what Russia wants and what it's truly intent on. Almost 400 drones launched as well. Later today, there will be a report from the delegation following the first round of talks in Geneva. The team absolutely must raise the issue of these strikes, first of all, with the American side, which proposed that both Ukraine and Russia refrain from attacks. Ukraine is ready. We do not need war, and we always act symmetrically, defending our state and our independence. Likewise, we're ready to move quickly toward a just agreement to end the war. The only question is for the Russians. What do they want? And also whether there will be consequences for Russia for the fact that the Shahed missiles and fantasy chatter about history matter more to them than real diplomacy and lasting peace. And the whole time you have Donald Trump, like when he was on Air Force One the other day, threatening Ukraine. He's saying Ukraine better come to the table fast. Ukraine better do this. Ukraine better do that. Ukraine's at the table. Ukraine's agreeing to a ceasefire. Ukraine's agreeing to elections. Ukraine's agreeing to a referendum to also give up portions of Donbass and to give up portions of eastern Ukraine. All Ukraine is saying is we need a ceasefire, a real lasting ceasefire, and then we can have our people be able to vote and to be able to make this determination, self-determination, sovereignty. I can't unilaterally give up the remainder of Donbass. Zelenskyy says, what would my people think?